Hey viewers and viewers, my name is General Red Strategist and welcome back to Sir You're Being Hunted. So, episode 692, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for a podcast style episode, as usual and all that. It's an evening as I want to record this, I feel like I've said that quite a lot actually, in a lot of past episodes. Oh yes, it's an evening, ladies and gentlemen, I just got back from work. It's been a busy day and I wanted to play some games to unwind. That's usually how it goes, and that's exactly how it's going this time as well, folks. So, also, I just needed to actually get recording at least one more episode of Sir, just to keep the queue going in the meantime, and all that. Hope you guys are obviously doing well. Halloween is drawing ever and ever closer. It is it's actually 15th of October. I might as well date the video as when I record this. So, basically, halfway through October. This month is actually going... Well, it feels like it's going quite quickly, if I'm honest. Which is, not really surprising. I don't know, I feel like when you're an adult, life does go pretty quickly. You know? Maybe it's just because there's so many commitments that you have going on day to day, whether work, family, or whatever, that, you don't really pay attention to the clock. You wake up in the morning and it's 7 o'clock or 6 o'clock. Next time you look at the clock, suddenly it's 8 o'clock in the evening. At least that's how it sometimes feels to me and all that. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I did actually have an interesting topic of conversation that I wanted to talk about this episode. It's actually sort of current affairs related, in fact, coming from the scientific sphere. Some of you who follow space research news probably have heard about Europa Clipper, the satellite, or whatever it is, that has been launched recently at the start of its journey to Europa, which is one of Jupiter's moons, isn't it? Europa? Yeah, it's Jupiter, isn't it? It's not Saturn, I don't think. No, I'm pretty sure it's Jupiter, if my memory's serving me correctly. But, no, I've actually found the story of Europa Clipper quite fascinating. Obviously, given, the vast size of space and all that, Europa Clipper is actually not going to reach Europa until about 2030, something like that. So it's going to be taking a few years to get out there, which just goes to show how big, the universe is and all that. In fact, it just goes to show how big our solar system is, never mind the universe more generally. But the idea is it's going to get there, it's going to monitor and observe, look for signs of either life or for signs of conditions that would be conducive to life. Because that's the thing, from a scientific perspective, Europa is kind of fascinating. I don't know if I've talked about it before on So You're Being Hunted, maybe I have, but fuck it. Irrespective of whether I have, I'm going to ramble on about it in this episode. But the thing is, based on prior observations of the planet, or of the moon rather, a lot of scientists are of the belief that Europa has kind of like an icy crust, and then underneath that crust it has basically a subsurface ocean. And the thing is, traditionally in any solar system, there's what scientists refer to as the Goldilocks zone, which is sort of like not too close to the sun as to mean that a planet within that zone would be too hot for life, but also not too far away where it would be too cold to support life. So it's basically this Goldilocks zone, this kind of sweet spot in any solar system, which is just the right distance from the sun, whereby the sun, or the solar system's respective star, heats up the surface of the planet enough for it to be tolerable for life and conducive to the evolution of organic beings, but not, so hot that it wouldn't be able to support them, because any life on there would just die instantly. And the thing is, Europa as a moon technically sits way outside of this our solar system's Goldilocks zone, and yet it is still a candidate for potentially either having life on it or having conditions that are conducive to life. Because the thing is, if indeed the hypotheses and theories based on observations of the planet are correct, and there is indeed a subsurface ocean within it, one would think that, the gravitational pull of Jupiter and of other celestial bodies within Europa's immediate neighbourhood, those gravitational forces could sort of create tides within that subsurface ocean, and it would cause like tidal heating, I think it's called. Is that the right term? So in theory, that combined with the possibility that for all we know there could be like hydrothermal vents deep within Europa, within its subsurface ocean, means that there could be enough sources of heat within the planet itself that even though it's technically outside of the Goldilocks zone, away from our sun, it could still have conditions that would be conducive to the evolution of organic life, which is why Europa is so fascinating. Now, of course, what that life may look like is another question altogether. When we're talking life here, we're not necessarily talking, complex animals or plants. We could just be talking bacteria, single-celled organisms, that kind of thing. But even so, if Europa Clipper was to find signs of something like that, or at least find more conclusive evidence and data about the conditions within the planet and whether that can support life or not, that would be a momentous scientific discovery, that would. But it was interesting because I was reading an article on it recently, and Europa obviously isn't the only potential candidate within our solar system for celestial bodies that theoretically might have the conditions that could support life. Other ones that have been raised, Enceladus, which I think is a moon of Saturn, I think. I'm not sure. I think I got that right. I believe Ganymede, one of Jupiter's other moons. In fact, I think Ganymede is Jupiter's biggest moon, isn't it? Ganymede, I think, has been cited as a possibility. Titan, one of Saturn's moons. I think Titan has also been identified as a possible one. So a lot of it kind of comes down to whether there are sort of subsurface oceans on a planet. Hell, even Mars technically could still either support some kind of life, perhaps like a microbial level, or have done so in the past. Because wasn't there a discovery on Mars, like ice water, something trapped deep underground, based on samples taken from probes that have been sent? Is that not true? I feel like I've read that before. So in theory, it could be life deep underground on Mars, bacterial life or something, which makes for a fascinating topic of conversation. But space research in general is always quite fascinating. I know I've talked about it before during my So You're Being Hunted series. Because I think, I'm trying to think back to past So You're Being Hunted episodes where I've talked about space. And I think I remember, I think I did an episode when the James Webb telescope was launched. I talked about the pillars of creation, didn't I? Something like that. The big dust clouds that are God knows how far from our planet. Many, many light years. Yeah, I remember talking about that. So, consider this a follow-up space-themed episode, ladies and gentlemen. But it's got me kind of curious, actually. Thinking about celestial bodies like Europa. How many video games out there which use places like Europa or other moons that I've just identified as settings in video games? There's got to be some, right? Because I remember in my indie horror playlist there is a random video that I did of a game called Europa 1, which is sort of like a creepy underwater game where you're sort of piloting an ROV in Europa's subsurface ocean, filming strange life forms, things like that. Yeah, I remember that. So that's an example of one set on Europa, but that's not a major game. That was just a small low-budget indie horror. Admittedly, it was a good one. Just felt nice and smooth and well made overall. But yeah, I am curious if there are any other, maybe bigger titles in the video game world that are set on celestial bodies like Europa, or other ones, for example like the ones I've mentioned already. I feel like there's got to be, right? I mean, video games have been, what, going for, well, since the freaking very late 70s, in one form or another. There's been a load of video game history. There's got to be, right? There's got to be thousands and thousands of video games that have been produced over the years. Surely someone, some developer or company out there has made a video game set on, say, like a moon of Jupiter or Saturn or something. Maybe in the future, kind of like a sci-fi setting or whatever. That's gotta be a thing, surely. I feel like it has to be. I'd be very surprised, basically, if there hasn't been at least a couple of instances of that. But who knows, maybe there hasn't been. I don't know. But if anyone out there watching this can shed some light down in the comments below, Jesus Christ, rabbit. Don't know why that nearly jump scared me then. That'd be good to know. Do fill me in. What's the deal with the moons of Jupiter and Saturn and video games? Let's put it that way. Now, of course, I'm going to sort of park that particular topic of conversation aside for now, since I've kind of gone as far with it as I can. Other topic of conversation, though, is interesting, of course. You know, with it being obviously halfway through October now, as I'm going to record this, Halloween obviously is nearly upon us. Have I ever sort of asked the question of what's y'all's favourite Halloween monster, spooky creature, or whatever? You're a traditional fan of the vampire or the zombie, the witch, anything like that? You know, when you were a kid, did you ever go trick-or-treating even? And what did you dress up as? Did you dress up as 5-year-old Count Dracula? Who knows? I think I mentioned before, though, didn't I, in a previous episode, how I actually have no real memory as a kid of ever going trick-or-treating. I very well could have done, but I just don't recall. So as a result, I can't really remember what sort of costumes, if anything, I would have worn as a kid around about Halloween. I'm trying to think. I remember, though, when I was a very, very young kid, you know, around about 4 or 5, or however old, I was massively into pirates. And of course, as a kid, usually, you know, if you're into that kind of thing, you might well have a few little dress-up props, things like that you might play with. I remember as a kid, you know, I had a couple of little plastic cutlasses, and I'm pretty sure I did have some, like, dress-up clothes that was sort of piratical, but I don't remember them too well. I just have very vague memories of it. Having said that, that wasn't like a Halloween thing, though. That was more just a, you know, very early childhood thing. You know, I could probably do a whole podcast episode talking about things I liked in my childhood, you know? Just general things, not like specifically, I don't know, like books or video games or things like that. I mean, I've talked about that kind of thing before in Sir, but perhaps just more sort of general things like, you know, ooh, I was into pirates when I was 4 years old or whatever. Ooh, I was into castles and everything medieval at such and such a time. Because Lord knows, I could probably talk about that for at least 15 minutes, knowing me. That's the thing. Right. But yes, let me know in the comments, folks. Halloween, when you were a kid, what did you like to dress up as? What was your favourite Halloween monster, or ghoul, or whatever? Right, looking at time, I think we'll probably call it quits on this episode, especially since we got, what, the 2 remaining device pieces that were on this island. So I think that'll do for us. Just a nice short podcast-style episode. Even if it is just 10 or 15 minutes, it'll be fine. Oh, actually, something I will mention before I wrap up, though. Obviously, this being episode 692, it's not going to be long before we hit episode 700. So, I've not really thought too hard about what I'm going to do for that. So, in all likelihood, it's probably going to be another Q&A, and I'll probably seek to get Phil and Connor involved. So, you know what? If you want to leave some Q&A questions, please do so. I'll probably also put a call out on the community tab on the General Red Strategist channel. Once again, sort of asking, so you're being hunted episode 700's coming up. You know what that means? Q&A time, ladies and gentlemen. Get your questions in. Whatever you want to ask, go ahead. Whether it's about games, whether it's about just life in general, other types of media, whatever it may be, feel free to ask. Because I always enjoy doing a good Q&A episode. If we can get Connor involved, and Phil as always, the more the merrier and all that. Alright, so, time to wrap up. Social media links, propagandist channel link, all that jazz can be found down in the video description. But on that, if you enjoyed, a like is of course always appreciated, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye everybody. Here. There we go. Going, who? Or what? Blow them all up, there we go. Right, it's got to get closer, that's all. Shit. Fuckers. Wait, stop. Oi. Get out of it, you weirdo. I'll kill him off. Ooh, shit. No, I'm going straight into it. What am I doing? You've got to watch out. Right. Did I get him? Yeah, I did. Oi, stop. You bastards. Get out of it. Oh, there's another one there who is oblivious. Boom. Bit overkill, but hey, that's fine. Oi. I lost out the inside of that. I think I did. Sort of. There we go. I dealt with the bunker. Oi.